Hi, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. I have Ceri Payne here today, and she is a delight to talk to. I've really enjoyed this time we've had before to talk, and I've always been drawn to her in the way that she's happy, and she is someone you want to be friends with. And she's glowing in the sense that, she's done some work that I think you guys will appreciate to hear today on what you can do to help yourself, in particular women in business, moms in business, but these principles apply to all areas. So we're going to be talking about confidence and intuition, and she's a time management coach for women in business. But I'll let her introduce herself. So welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, thank you. You're easy to talk to. So tell us more about you and what you do. And we want to know who this woman is.
My least favorite part of the podcast, I'm sure we'll be talking about myself, but my name is Ceri. It's like the iPhone. So Ceri Payne. I am a mom of 3 teenage daughters. I am a time management, kind of a business strategist, scheduler, productivity coach for women, mostly women in business, a lot of creative women with ADHD, women that just have a desire to create and to make dreams happen, but they don't want to do it at the expense of their other goals in life or their motherhood. And so I just really help them simplify and organize and produce businesses and motherhood dreams and memories in a way that really feels good to them, where they're not feeling like they're doing a lot of sacrificing to follow their dreams.
And I love that you're making sure that they're putting in what's most important first, and they're still able to do the business. And Ceri, I love how you don't compromise one or the other for women and their business, and they can have both. And today I definitely wanted to talk about this part that you also involved in order to balance our life and to keep time in order and in check, that you have them use that intuition, more of that sixth sense. So we connect on that level with intuitive eating, intuitive business, it sounds like. So tell us more about that, and I'd love to hear what that means.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't necessarily use that word, but I know as you and I were talking, it just naturally just kept coming up. But I really help my clients hone in on their priorities. So whether you're growing a business or you just have a goal for yourself or something like outside of your motherhood and you have different roles, it's like I help you figure out what the priorities are in all of those areas so that they can really complement each other and so that they're not competing with one another. And as we go through and understand what our priorities are, like how do these things make us feel? What do we want to reach from them? What's the purpose of them? Then we intuitively start to naturally put them in our day in a way that feels really good. And so that way, if we're putting them in our day that feels good, yes, we have schedules and we can be, super rigid to being very flexible. It doesn't really matter. But if you know what you want and why you want it and what your priorities are, then you can really get things into your day naturally that really will make sense, that will really empower you, that will excite you. And so I think that when we have these rigid schedules for ourselves, it's because we don't really know what's working for us. We don't know what we want to do, or we don't really know the results. And so we're doing like all the things. And so when you know your priorities, a lot of the things can just kind of relax and drop out, and you can just focus on what I call the needle movers, whether it's in your business or a goal, or even like in your motherhood. If you know your needle movers, if you know your priorities, you know your needle movers, and that's what really simplifies things.
Needle movers. Yes, I use that term too. What is the thing that right now that's going to make the biggest difference? You really have to just focus that one step at a time of what's the next thing that's going to make the biggest difference. Because it's kind of like that debt snowball that Dave Ramsey talks about. You do that one that will give you that, it kind of gives you a dopamine hit, honestly. So you're kind of using your own chemicals in your brain to help you forward to make sure you are still staying productive, but in an intuitive way that, this, as you're talking, it made me think of how we look outside of ourselves to find those plans or routines, and same with intuitive eating, and how I try and teach people to reject diet mentality. A lot of why we are where we are in our culture with diet mentality is because we've looked outside of ourselves for those plans, and they may have not been created for us. Plus, it's not working that muscle within yourself, knowing what you should be doing with your body and your health. And you put it in someone else's court and in their power in that plan. But there are tools that could be helpful. But for the most part, the best is your own brilliant computer, as you're saying, of really thinking through, okay, what is like you said, put it in order of a day, in the order that it needs to for a day, and it feels good. And then that's when you're in the right spot. Is that usually where you feel like you come to with them? What does that look like? What does the woman seem like after that?
Yeah. So, I mean, and naturally you go through your priorities, right? And then when you know what you want to hit. So I don't know a ton about what it looks like to work with you, but let's just pretend I do. And I'm thinking, you're like, well, how do you want to feel in your body? How do you want to think? And how do you want to, whatever, right? And so they're like, I want to feel like motivated, and I really want to feel like good in my body. And I want to feel like my mind has clarity, right? So then you would ask them, what do you need to eat, right, to be able to accomplish those things, right? And so that's when you naturally know, like, if I need to be and want to feel really motivated and clear, and I want my mind sharp today, then you're like, I know I'm maybe going to stay away from the sugar. But it doesn't mean that sugar is bad and that you can't have sugar. It just means today, maybe you're not going to have the sugar. And so it's kind of like that principle. Like when you know what you want to feel in your business or in your motherhood, lots of times if you want to feel connected in your motherhood, you're like, okay, so what am I going to do today that makes me feel connected with my children? Or if my business, like I really want to feel creative. Okay, what would make me feel creative? And maybe it's I create a new plan, or I create some social media posts, or send out an email. So when we know how we want to feel, but we know the reason why too, like we have that powerful why, that powerful motivation, then that's where we create our days from. But then naturally it just kind of, I'm hoping, and I assume with intuitive eating, you sort of fall into a rhythm too, where it's not like every day you're constantly assessing, like, what do I need? What's good for my body? Like that's great. And I think that's what we should do in our business too. And in our motherhood and whatever we're, whatever venture we're on, but it's kind of like knowing how we want to feel and the purpose for that, then that allows us to dictate the actions that we take. And same with your clients, right? The food that they would eat.
And what you're also clearing out is a lot of that clutter in their mind with what they feel like they should be doing with their food, what people are maybe think they're being judged on, with the way their body looks, and how they shouldn't show up in certain ways and in certain ways of confidence because they feel like their body's that way. It's probably that same way if a woman is constantly reassessing and trying to be, of course, it's good to be so productive. That's the call of the century. Be productive, the hustle, American dream. But it'll end up clouding your mind if it's done to a certain extent. And I could see that with you're helping ground them down, and they are actually they're the best boss for themselves, knowing what to do.
Yes. And along that lines is some of my clients actually are really productive and want to be productive, and productive really like gives them a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of motivation and a lot of good. And so sometimes I have like almost like two different sets of clients, like the really super not over, but like they're very productive, but they're hearing the slow down, take your time, do less. And, or I have the ones that want to be a little more doing less, want to be a little more calm, a little more flow in their business, but they're hearing like, be productive, have a schedule, make a plan. And so it's kind of like, I really help both of them come into who they are. And so sometimes we don't feel like we need to slow down. Well, then maybe you don't need to, right? There was a period of time where I'm like, okay, I'm going to meditate and I'm going to take time and slow down and all of those things just because I thought I should. Right? Because everyone says it's good for me. But what I have noticed for me, I get my most clarity, my most creative thoughts in the action, right? So where some people can really sit down and maybe meditate and their brain gets clear and they think about stuff and they get these brilliant ideas. For me, it's during action, whether it's working out or just getting started on something or start writing. And so when we know how we reach that level of what I like balance for ourselves, right? Whether it's like working, meditating, whether it's like going on a run, like when we know what that is for us, then I realize what I really help them do is hone in on what it looks like for them. And so the one that thinks they need to do more, maybe sometimes they don't, they just need to stop judging that they're not doing enough. And the ones that are like, I'm doing too much, sometimes I'm like, but what do you want to be doing with their time? And they would say they're a workaholic, but really it's what really motivates them and fuels them. And if there isn't what I call a net negative, meaning like their life isn't suffering in other areas, their motherhood isn't suffering, they're able to reach other goals and feel good about other roles in their life, well, then there really isn't a net negative to being, someone that works or enjoys working, right? It's like painful to have someone say you can't work on Saturday for some people, right? And for other people, it's like, oh my gosh, that's the best news. I can have a business without working on Saturday. So you have to just decide what really feels good to you and what motivates you. And then that's the creative schedule that you make for yourself.
Yeah. So let's explore that a little bit more, because when you really clearly know your why and the vision, of course it's cliche, but I'd love to hear people's different opinions on it. and what it is that they help their own clients do, or if I'm talking with someone that doesn't have a client, it isn't a coach or something, but that they know what they need to do for themselves on their vision, what it looks like for them. Of course, that is different, but how do they find that how do they really, and when they find it, how does it feel to then go and do those things? So how do you do that for someone to guide them, kind of be that mentor along the way to help them figure that out?
Yeah, so it goes back to that first pillar that I mentioned was priorities. So when you know your priorities, you know what it is that you want to accomplish. And then I really walk my clients actually through a series, and this can take a couple of different sessions, and it's what we do at the very, very beginning, but we walk through the why, but we really go deep and like, well, why do you want that? And they may say, well, because I want it for this way. And then, okay, well, why do you want that? And why do you think that that is powerful? And why do you think that that's the way for you? And when we really peel down those onions for the why, and I ask them in a different set, that maybe it's not just like a toddler, like, well, why? How sometimes you're like, ask yourself why 5 times and that's your why. I do it a little bit differently, but in a nutshell, that why then tells you what it is that you truly want as a result. So for example, lots of women that I work with, they say maybe they want spirituality as their why, right? Like they want it to be one of their priorities. But if I just took that at face value and you we're like, oh, well, then this is what you need to do to quote unquote make spirituality part of your life. But when you really walk through the whys, like, what is it that you want? Right. And they may say, well, because I want a, relationship with God, or someone may say, because I want to understand the scriptures or the standard works, like forward and backwards, so I can teach the stories. Notice as we're going down, all of a sudden we're going down different paths, right? Because to create a connection with God could be listening to music. It could be meditating. It could be praying. But if you want to know the stories and the scriptures really well so that you can share them, then maybe it isn't meditating and praying. You might actually not read the scriptures at all. You might actually read other people's books about what the stories mean and what it is, and really dive into the story and the history and all of that. So when you know the why, right, it's not just like, I call it superficial, but it's not, but like spirituality, but truly the why. Right. And so when I peel back all the layers and they know the why that they want, then the action steps become your roadmap. They become literally your treasure map of what to do. Right. So if your spirituality is just to like feel connected, that's why you want spirituality. Well, then you're going to do a different set of things than someone that maybe is like, okay, I want to make spirituality a priority today or this year, but I want it to be a priority so that I understand the scriptures, right? They're going to have a different set of action steps. So that's why I feel like the why is so powerful, because it really does create the simplicity, the needle movers, the exact things that you need to do to make that thing a habit. But lots of times we don't understand that. We just go, oh, spirituality, or, oh, motherhood, or, just, my health. But it could be a different set of health is so broad. And so when you really know what that means, defining what your health priority is and what the result you want from making that thing a priority, then that's where it becomes simple. The exact action steps for you to take to reach that goal or that priority.
I love that that was kind of something that you did with a client of yours. You're saying that they kind of looked outside the box. There are actually other ways to help them get there that needed to be found for them. And that it didn't need to look like this straight way of reading the scriptures, which can be really hard. And that's, we're going to talk about that here, because these are Latter-day Saint women that are probably going through Come Follow Me in Old Testament right now, currently. And it's hard, especially right now, talking about the kings, and it's hard, like, to really read and dive through those. But I love that you're seeing that it's okay to point that out to them, and the intention they have behind that to learn these scriptures is what's most important. It's the intention God sees in you and will expound your efforts. And that can come in the form of books, that can come in the form of any sort of knowledge, any sort of truth. And so it seems like a lot what you're saying too is they are finding their own truth for them. And a lot of the spirit guide is a spirit led and guided thing, because God really cares about our businesses. He does so much. And I've felt that from him to me. And and then he knows that roadmap, like you're saying, to get there. And as you're kind of putting that trust through with him, you can get there. I really like that.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's talk about this confidence piece too, because I'm really glad we touched on the God piece. As you talked about, I'm like, I think I wanted to talk more about that. I mean, maybe we'll have time, but that's probably just the confidence. We're coming. Yeah, it's going fast. But this confidence piece for women, of course, why? Like, why is it important? Why? What is it going to do for them in their life, whether they're the business of life or they actually have a business or the business of being a home at home, taking care of the kids and the whole house? What is it that it is that we need it? Confidence.
Well, I think confidence allows us to decide or uncover like what our strengths are so that we can work in our strengths, but also confidence. If we're leading with our confidence, we're leading with our strengths, then we can expect to succeed more. And so if you are starting any new endeavor, or you're in the middle of it, you said like business of life or mother, whatever you're in right now, really focus on what you're already good at and do more of that to create the life that you want, right? To create your motherhood. Like you might be a really fun mom that likes to do crafts and arts and all of that, but you're over here going, but I should be disciplining them and we should be doing chore charts and cleaning our house or whatever. But if that isn't your strength, it doesn't mean that those things aren't important, but don't beat yourself up because you don't do one or the other. Right. And maybe I'm just like, I wasn't a mom that was like all into Play-Doh and finger painting and stuff, but I looked at the moms that are, and I'm like, that is so awesome. But of course they're looking at me going, but your house is so clean. I want your right. And so it's like, if we don't have confidence in who we are, our gifts, our, you know, what Heavenly Father wants us to be and what he needs us to cultivate either in our home or in our communities, then we are not expecting to succeed. And so I like to share with my clients that, are you having wedding day thoughts about your goal or about your business or about your motherhood? And when I say wedding day thoughts, I think when me and my husband got married, neither of us were like, this might be a bad idea. Like, I hope this is going to last, you know, like, what if this is a disaster? You know, we weren't thinking those things. We're like, this is amazing. This is going to be incredible. This is going to be so fun. Right. And so if you aren't having those kind of thoughts about you as a mother, or you in your business or whatever it is that your goals, whatever you're, you know, pursuing, well, then stop and ask yourself, why not? And then what do you need to do to be able to kind of have those thoughts? Because confidence is just us expecting to succeed. Confidence is us being willing to be scared and doing it anyways. You know, confidence is us cheering other people on, maybe on a really bad day for us. So it's not us being, you know, lots of times people think the confident person is like the lead in the school play, or the confident person is like maybe the kid that ran for, you know, student body president. And it's not that they're more confident than somebody else. And sometimes they're even maybe just as scared or more scared. It's just they were willing to do it anyways, because they thought the impact that it would have on others or in their life, whatever it may be, is worth going through that thing scared. And so I just like to remind people that confidence just allows us to become more of who we're meant to be if we're expecting to succeed and if we're expecting to believe in ourselves to be successful.
Oh, I love it. Your answers are beautiful in that sense of you play to your strengths. And I'm trying to think and also how this ties in with the intuitive eating and health and really the overhaul of our mind that I have as a whole part of what I do. But it's all a part of it, that playing to our strengths and knowing, okay, especially with women, if they're on that path of really trying to accept their bodies, maybe they've been berating themselves for years, but they can have the strength of today knowing, you know what, I like that I have curves. I do like I have curves. I don't like my pooch where they'll say, you know, they'll say all those negative things, but at least they can find one thing. But they can't just say today, I love my body, but they have the strength to enough say one thing and to use that, and knowing that that's what they can work on and grow into it. So you're saying as your strength, you grow into your strengths, increase your confidence more, and you are able to do more. And then I think, and the whole process is brave, but you become even more brave, I feel like, over time. And of course, we're not saying that we're wondering what people think of us, but us being very connected people, we like to look at others and we'll see that that person is so brave and they seem like they have their cool, but we don't. And we're just able to maybe hide it a little bit more because we've also, I know what's going through there, at least for me, especially with doing things like this, podcasting, or being on different things where I have to speak. I'm just still saying it in my head. I can do this. I've done it before. I could do it again. And God is reassuring me that whole time. And especially if you're going through different seasons of life. I just had a client of mine tell me that she renewed with me in the sense she had already gone through the whole program, but she knew she still needed some extra help as she went on month to month. And she said, I never gone through the summertime with this new mindset of intuitive eating and accepting my body and being on vacation and going to a family reunion. And the way my mind would be so different when I was at a family reunion, and especially families, things bring up those hard thoughts of ourselves, because these are people that should love us the most, or maybe they'll make comments. And she was brave, and she realized that as she had done that work before, she's just having to tell her mind that she can be confident in herself and be fine with what she's eating and her cues, and rejecting the diet mentality and talk that's going on around her. And she is being confident that she's focused on her new level. She's in her intuition, into her space of what she knows is right. So that was kind of a thought that came to my mind.
Yeah, I love how you use the word brave. And as you were saying that, and you said the story of like the person that maybe can say, I like my curves, but I don't necessarily like my pooch, or however you said it. I was thinking like, it's almost like being appreciative of what we have. Like, so I spent the majority of my life, and you probably don't even know this, but in the 200-pound range. And not that we need to quantify, but and I was running marathons and stuff like that, but I was just a larger person, but I could lift like anything, and people would be like, oh, we need help. We need a guy to come help lift this couch. And I'm better than any guy, right? Not really, but like your traditional guy, and I could hold my own. And now that I have lost the weight, I am not that strong. And I kind of forget that sometimes. Like, I can do it. And then I'm like, wait, I totally can't anymore. But it's like, if we can appreciate what that body is or what it's doing for us. So yes, did I want to wish that I was, a little thinner, so it made running a little bit easier? Sure. But like, I can appreciate that now looking back, like there was a lot of things like that body could do that made it easier that maybe I can't even do now. Or I even had like during that same period of time when I was, a lot heavier. I had a friend, and she was like complaining about a little wrinkle on her eye, and she was very thin, what I would say is just like the perfect like body, like so tiny or whatever the perfect body, right? The quotes. But, and I'm like, I cannot wait to have a body so amazing that I'm looking at my little tiny like eye wrinkle. And I mean, she's like 25 probably at the time. We weren't very old, but it just goes to show that no matter what body we're in, right, we can always appreciate it, or we can always pick it apart, and we can always find something to not love about it. So, and I'm sure like even now, like being thinner than I had lived most of my life, there's still things I could either pick apart or things that I could appreciate for it. And so just notice, like, no matter what size you are, there's someone bigger or smaller that's picking other parts of their body in different ways. And so just, the size is not important. It's really that confidence that you have being you, and it's accepting and loving you.
Right. I love that. No matter what it's going to be, we're going to use that energy towards it. Like, we're going to be either picking at ourselves or being appreciative. So might as well choose the energy to then be being appreciative of what you have. So I really like that you're because we're not going to stand still. We're in motion all the time with our emotions. It's, that's the whole definition, is emotion. So, and to use that for the better. So I love this. This has been really good to talk to you. And any last things you'd like to say that would help, and more about you, and then I'll have you mention where they can contact you and see what you do.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess like I could talk for hours, but mainly just like finding what it takes in you to believe in yourself, right? Making lists of all the things that you know that you're good at, things that you, that maybe people compliment you on for what you're already doing in life, or things that people appreciate you for, and start seeing if you could do more of those in your business or in your life or whatever it is that you're working on, and really start to implement that, and really start to focus on doing things you love, right? Like, and when I say that, like in your business, right? Like, I don't necessarily get a ton of traffic as far as clients from Instagram, but I really love writing posts, and I love helping people and connecting and sharing my ideas. And so I still do it in my business, even though maybe it's not the most lucrative thing I could do. But until I don't have time or energy to keep doing that, then I'm going to keep doing those things in my business. So whatever it is in our motherhood or whatever it is that we're working on, just do those things that really light you up, because that motivation, that confidence, that excitement will then translate and roll over into other parts of your life.
Oh, that's totally what I agree. And because once people can get to that point of being in level one of really just they're berating themselves, like I'm saying, they're at war with their bodies. Once they've gotten out of that, they can be to more of that level of what they love to do and finding what I call the fire in their belly, what really makes them come alive, and to be okay and know I can do those things because I do like them. And I have the permission for that. I give myself that permission. And it usually involves, like you're saying, people. And I like to also put on as a second point that it involves preparing for the second coming of Christ. So I mean, they're both hand in hand, as we connect and love and help people come to Christ in whatever way and shape and form that is, even a little bit to a lot of it, that it will be preparing for second coming of Christ. But it's all about kind of what God created us to be, and that's those strengths that we do have, and doing what we love. A lot of times our strengths are what we love, but sometimes maybe not. And you may have an interest in something that you're not so good at, and that's what's cool, is weakness can become strong. And I like that you're really helping women see that they can have that be something they do. They are allowed.
Yeah, they're allowed to make it look the way that it feels simple and easy and fun and motivating, right? If we're creating either a diet, not a diet, but if you're creating like a food plan, right? Or the things that you want to eat, or you're creating a business plan, if it doesn't feel exciting and fun and motivating, we're not going to stick to it. So that's what we want to do, is really figure out what's that balance that we can do all those things that are fun and exciting and motivating and still get us the result that we want, whether it's to feel a certain way, look a certain way, have a certain amount of money in our bank account, whatever those goals are, but how can we reach them and feel the way we want to feel on the way there?
Yeah, that's my principle number 6.
It sounds like I need to get these principles. I'm talking about them, but I don't know. So you'll have to send them over to me.
I mean, it's a lot of life, discovering the satisfaction factor and really figuring out what we like and the different aromas, textures, the way it looks, and maybe things from your childhood that you didn't look, that kind of has a whole different memoriam thing to it. So anyway, it's very, very similar, but it's been a pleasure to talk to you. How can they get in touch with you? Where are you at? You're on Instagram. So
yeah, I'm on Instagram most often. So it's just Ceri Payne Coaching over on Instagram. I do have a website. It's the same. You can type in Ceri Payne Coaching as well, or organizedlife.coach. They'll take you to the same spot. So whatever you can remember, that's where you can come connect with me.
Great. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.